Hello everybody, welcome back. I am going to continue where I left off with our last video and talk about how to set up the XAMPP web server, but first I want to talk about why we have to do that. Now in this course, as you know, we're talking about PHP pages, and we talked about the fact that those pages get generated on the server and are delivered back to the client, but that PHP actually, its job is to manufacture HTML code. So let me show you a demonstration of that. If I were to go in here and say I wanted to create a new PHP document, so I'm going to come in and bring up a text editor and just create something really simple in PHP. Okay, so I would start here with HTML. And I'm going to save this right off the bat so I get my color coding to work. So I'm going to save this as my desktop, and I'll call it testing.php. Okay, so I've got my head section, and then title of the page, testing PHP capabilities. In the body of the document, I'm going to go into PHP mode. And again, you don't have to really worry about the syntax of this too much yet. We're just talking about conceptual things here. So all of this is HTML except for lines 6 to 8, where we switch over into PHP mode. And if I come in here and echo out a paragraph of text, welcome to my site, like this, what should happen is the page will run and it'll come up all straight HTML from top to bottom. And in between the two body tags will be a paragraph that says welcome to my site, and it will, again, will all be in this HTML configuration. So if I go to save this and I want to go test it out, and here's the document right here. Notice, first of all, that Windows doesn't know how to run this. If I double-click it to open it, it doesn't really know what to do with it. Now, if I say, look, I want you to open this with a web browser, there's just no way to do it because Windows doesn't anticipate that happening. Because you can't open up a PHP page unless you're running it inside of a browser. And the PHP page is supposed to be on a web server. Now, if I try to get around that, so say I open up Firefox here, and I still want to open up this document. So I come in and I say File, Open File, and I go to my desktop and I choose my testing.php page and I open it. And this is what I'm getting. Welcome to my site, and then some gibberish down below. Now, what's actually happening here is this. Some web browsers are a little bit more forgiving and tolerant than others. What this browser does is it says, okay, even though the file name has a PHP extension on it, I see HTML in it, so that's what I'm going to work with here. That's what I'm going to use. or have in here. So it does. It implements everything that it sees. It gets to the body, and you'll notice that the question mark PHP doesn't show up, but the welcome to my site does. And then there's this quote semicolon question mark bracket, which actually is this piece of the file right here, and that's the only piece that seems to be displaying. Now if I come back to the page and I view the source, you'll see that the other stuff is also there, but the browser is just choosing to ignore what it sees on line 6 and what it sees on the beginning of line 7. But for some reason, it's not ignoring what comes after the quotation mark. Now, this might be a totally different experience if you run this in Internet Explorer or if you run this in Chrome. The point is, this doesn't look the way it's supposed to look. You're not even really supposed to open this page. We just sort of worked around the back and opened it directly within the file menu. So how do we test this thing out? Okay, that's the question. Well, we need to be a web server to be able to put this PHP page up. So what we have to do is install XAMPP, and that's where really the purpose of this video comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to Blackboard. Going to go into the course. I'm going to go to course information. Scroll down to software. And here's the XAMPP. Here's the link to the site. So I'm going to click on that link. It takes me to the website. And I would want to click this first button right here, XAMPP for Windows. Now I've already done this, so what you get is a setup program. And you save that setup program and you run the setup file and you jump through all the hoops, and ultimately what you get is a program sitting out in your folder structure called XAMPP, and you can see it here in the Windows menu. And then you've got the XAMPP control panel right here. So I'm going to select that. Now, we're not concerned about MySQL yet, but XAMPP actually enables your computer to be a web server, which is the Apache module, and it also enables you to be a database server with the MySQL module. The rest of this stuff we're not going to worry about at this point. But what I want to do is start the Apache module. So I'm going to click Start here. And what should happen is this should turn yellow and then it should turn green. Once it turns green, you can minimize this window and we can now simulate our web server. Now, when you access a web site, as I said earlier, you're going to a web server, a computer. And when you type in the address, you're looking in a folder to get the content of that website. In XAMPP, your website must be placed in the XAMPP folder in a subfolder called htdocs. Now if I go into htdocs, there will be already here a bunch of files and folders. But what I did was I copied book apps and example starts and project starts into this folder. Now I also get the solutions and the enhancements and all this other stuff because I was able to get the instructor guide, and of course I have all the solutions here. Sorry, you can't get those, but anyway, I have all of that, so I have more stuff here than what you'll have, but the point is that I've got all this stuff in the htdocs folder. So you're going to want to put the book's stuff, the book's content, into this htdocs folder. Now, I can take my testing.php page here, and I can put that into the htdocs folder as well. So how do you get at the htdocs folder inside of your browser? Well, the way you get to it is you come up to your page, you go into your address bar, and you type in http://localhost. Or you could have just typed in localhost. But anyway, localhost. Localhost is the IP address. Well, let me back up. It's the URL to your local web server. The IP address actually is 127.0.0.0 point something. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, oh, there it is right there. It's 127.0.0.1. That. So here is your URL. This is your IP address, okay? And then I'm going to type in testing.php. Let's try to open this file up without going through localhost. So I'm going to go to cxamp htdocs, and I'm going to pull in testing.php. I'm opening the file. When I open the file, it doesn't run it through the web server proper as it's supposed to do. As you can see, it's broken again. But if I type in localhost/welcome.php, I'm sorry, screwed up again, testing.php, then it works fine. So the point is, when you say you're going to do an assignment, okay? So what you're going to want to do is you go to your C drive, you go to xamp. So here's your C drive, here's xamp. Then you go into htdocs. Then you create the ASG1 folder. Now I'm going to take testing.php and I'm going to put that into my ASG1 folder. And I'm going to rename this file index.php. So back in my browser, if I try to pull up testing.php, it's of course no longer there. Okay, but if I come up here and I type in localhost/ASG1, I don't have to put the page name now because I named it index.php, which is a default page. So I type in localhost/ASG1, which is taking me into my xamp htdocs folder and pointing me there. The ASG1 takes me into this folder, and then my default page comes up. Now, under Book Apps, you'll notice here is the Chapter 1 Product Discount folder, and inside of that is an index.html page and a display discount page. Right? Let's take a look at those two files and see what they do. The HTML document has a form in it, and it has a text box for a product description and a price and a discount percent, and a button that says calculate discount. Now, if I go into localhost book_apps and I go to CH01 product discount, this is the page right here. So you can see the 3 text boxes and the button. When you click the button, it takes the form and routes it over to this file right here, display_document.php. So it collects up all the data and sends it to the PHP page. The PHP page collects the information and puts them in variables. It does some math, and then it prints out a bunch of data into the appropriate text boxes. Because what it does is, after it does all this math, it brings up HTML, and then it echoes out the appropriate answers in the right places. So what's interesting here is the HTML document is used here to collect everything. But then the destination, which is your PHP document, he starts by getting all the stuff from the web page, doing some math on it to get some answers. And then you'll notice right here, the PHP document starts now here to generate HTML. And here's an example right here. You have an H1 header, a label that says product description, and then here's a span tag, and in the span tag, PHP kicks in, and it echoes out the product description. Notice how you're going in and out of PHP and HTML. This is HTML. This is PHP. That's all HTML. And then you're back to PHP again. So you're going in and out of both. The net result, however, is that this is going to be solid HTML coming back to the client. So that when I come in here and I type in something, a 15% discount, that I will get this page, which is essentially that PHP file. You can see right up here, in fact, it even shows that display_discount.php. And if I look at the source for this page, I don't see any PHP in here at all. All I see is plain old HTML. So I don't know how this got generated. These numbers that I see here, I have no clue how those got created. I mean, I do. I mean, I can figure it out in this case, but I don't see the code that created that. And that's the beauty of PHP, is that you can do stuff on the server that the user on the client side can never see, because the PHP code is invisible to them. They can't get to it or see it. What the client gets to see is the result of what the PHP code makes, which is HTML. So in this course, we're going to start out learning this PHP language that you're seeing here. And then a little bit later, we're going to learn MySQL, and then we're going to see how PHP and MySQL can talk. Once we've done that, now PHP will be able to communicate with a database and generate HTML, which opens up a whole new world of possibilities for your web pages. So in your assignment that you have for this week, you're asked to essentially do what I just did. So you'll start XAMPP, and this assumes that you've copied your book apps folder into your XAMPP htdocs subfolder, like we showed you. And if you did that, you should be able to type this address in and get what you saw me get when I did it. Take a screen capture of that page, then enter some data into it, and hit calculate discount, get an answer, and then get a screen capture of that. It says to try to enter some invalid characters and see what happens. So what they're saying then is, okay, click the back button and try to enter some gibberish in here. And what you see here is an error comes up at the top. So this document is not crash proof. This essentially is a crash, essentially here. You don't want the user to see that stuff up on the screen. But the program has to be made more bulletproof so that if the user does dumb things like that, it won't crash. But they're showing you here that if you do something wrong, you can get errors and see where they occur and then make an attempt to fix them, which is good because we're going to be doing stuff like that. So you'll get a screenshot of this type of a page, and then you'll get one with valid data, some other values, and I'll get a result. So this would be your third screenshot. So your first screenshot would be this page with nothing in it. A second screenshot would be a valid screen, and then another screenshot would be, oh, that's interesting, a gibberish, or not a gibberish, an error page like this. Now you noticed here that it let me type in gibberish for the discount percent and it was happy as a clam. That's another issue that we'd have to consider, but we're not really that concerned about the language at this point or what it's doing or any of this of that. I just wanted to show it to you so that you could sort of see what's going on behind the scenes, what PHP does, and making sure that you installed XAMPP, that you put things in the right place, and that you understand you have to type in localhost in your browser to see the stuff, and just sort of get it all working. At some point in the semester, I'm going to bring up a real web server, and we can send our documents to that so you can see these things actually running on the real internet. Now, I'm going to close the browser, and I'm going to close the text editor and all this stuff. And one last thing with XAMPP, when you're finished and you shut Windows down, all of this will close. But if you just are finished with XAMPP and you want to continue doing other things, you can hit the stop button and that will turn it off. So that's just an FYI. You can start and stop it as you need to. So I hope you find that helpful, and that's it for now. And next lesson we get into, we'll be digging into the PHP language properly and working through starting from the ground up. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.